Has a lane, 15-10, touchdown Chargers! What's up, guys? Welcome into a brand new episode of Chargers Weekly. As always, joined by Matt Money Smith, but usually Money is in California for the most part doing these pods. Money is doing a commencement speech at his high school this weekend in Chicago. That is big news, my friend.
Yeah, pretty cool. It's an old high school. So 151st commencement that I will be delivering the address. My old baseball coach and history teacher, who's been there for 37 years now, is now, he's not the headmaster, but he's like, the guy, I guess, second in charge. And so he reached out and he listens to the show and follows me, and just thought that I'd be able to share, I guess, some ideas and things with the graduating class of 2024. So yeah, it should be pretty cool. It'll be Saturday morning. I'm very much looking forward to it.
You've prepared remarks, and are you also going to speak from the heart?
I kind of went through a few iterations. Hopefully I don't end up in next year's Chargers video. And I just kind of settled on a theme of, I think what a lot of people do, and that's, what would I have wanted to hear, when I was sitting there zoning out. I think we had some CEO of a big time company in Chicago, and I don't remember much of what he said. So I just kind of tried to keep it a little bit lighter fare, as opposed to, Seth Godin's keys to success and tribes and all that sort of BS. I was like, you know what, let's civics, personal finance, kids, be happy. Let's just kind of keep it a little bit more, I don't know, down to earth, as opposed to let's go make $10 million and rule the financial world.
I would have loved to have had Matt Money Smith as my commencement speaker.
Well, I don't know. We'll see after this. We'll see. We'll see if the offers come pouring in and I decline them all, or if I'm not well. I have not been back on campus since I graduated. So,
are you serious?
No, I was an okay student, but I was a bit of a nightmare. It's funny, think of all the stuff I've done around Los Angeles. Like at Pepperdine, my old college roommate, and he's great. He's super accomplished orthopedic surgeon and runs orthopedics at USC athletics right now. But a lot of doctors that come out of Pepperdine. I mean, your picture's on the wall and mine's not. And he gets invited back for all these different dinners and alumni functions. They've never once reached out to me. I was a nightmare, dude. That's the reality of it. I was a nice guy, but I just found a little bit of trouble along the way, but whatever.
Bro, they're lucky that you're speaking on Saturday. I'm pumped for you.
Thanks, man.
You're in Chicago. We just missed each other at the golf tournament. I had the early shift, and I saw your guys setting up for your show in the afternoon. So I'd love to get your thoughts from, I know you talked to Coach Harbaugh and some other players there at the tournament. It's always a fun event, and it just a little bit more juice this year, obviously, with Coach Harbaugh and a lot of new players. And it felt like a fun environment where Coach actually made up the rules for the golf tournament. So that competition, you can't escape it, even at Rolling Hills at 8 a.m. on a Monday.
Yeah, I think it's a big story. I really do, just because I've been to them all. So I've kind of seen what participation looks like, how players are in a hurry to get out of there. They might not play. They might play 9 holes. They might play 12. They might play 6 and just be like, we're out. Everybody stayed. The Harbaugh, as coach told us, his unique set of rules. As someone who's played in a million of these charities tournaments, I was like, okay, this seems a little weird. But he's got it figured out, man. As opposed to as soon as you're done, let's get out. Everybody was hanging around. They did 13 holes scramble, and then the last 5 holes, you were individual and you would advance if. And by the time they got to the 18th hole, I think there were 8 8 people left that all teed off at the same time, and a guy drops a 35-footer for birdie, and all the players are encircling the green, and everyone's cheering, and this kid who's like 22 years old is having the time of his life, and Harbaugh's freaking out and hugging him, and he's giving him his trophy, and it's like, the presentation of the Open Championship with the claret jug. Like, it was hilarious. It was pretty awesome. I mean, turns out Jim Harbaugh kind of knows what he's doing and knows how to make an event and competitors compete and get after it and want to win something. It was pretty fun to watch.
He's infectious, man. He got the morning crew going, explaining the rules, getting out there. Thought he was going to win it himself, but then he also shared just the fact that these guys have been going hard for 9 weeks, and everybody's been there. 99% participation throughout the OTAs in this offseason program, and mentioned that it gives this team kind of that winning edge in the offseason that, listen, everybody's excited about what they have in their building right now. But again, I think we say it every week. It just feels different, and the buy-in. You alluded to it just with this golf tournament, to see all these players there, hang around, want to be there. It feels like that's kind of been the theme of the entire offseason.
Yeah, I think look, I'm not trying to take, and I never try to take anything away from, the other coaches. Everybody does it their own way. So I never want it to be viewed as that. This is different. It just is. It feels different. The participation, we talked about this last week, the fourth quarter period. I got into a little bit of trouble on that one, by the way, when he was sitting down with me and Petros doing the interview, and I was like, "Hey, coach, out there with the sled, you're pulling the plates. I saw you had 3 plates on there. It was like 150. He's like, "What? This was 100-pound plates. It was like 300 pounds." I was like, "Oh, my bad. Sorry. I should have thrown a number out there. 300 pounds. You got it." He's like, "Some of those guys are pulling 500. It's like, "You got it. Sorry. You're pulling 300. They're pulling 500.
By the way, you mentioned those medicine balls last week. I got an addendum to that. They weren't 30-pound medicine balls. These were like 110-pound medicine balls.
Oh, yeah. I had the number. I'm viewing it from my weak and wispy body, not from gladiators. So, yes, they're much different. Yeah, he was not happy. He snapped his neck. He was like, 135 pounds. What, 100-pound plates? It's like, "Sorry, coach. But tell me about it," and then it was exactly what we talked about. These games are close. The margins are slim, and it was interesting too. He didn't just say fourth quarter. He's like, end of the half. He's like, end of the half, guys are gassed. They want that break. And we got to make sure we're ready to put our foot on the gas at the end of the half as well, because that's where you can make maybe wins, losses become wins and things like that. So it was fun to talk to him. And again, Chris, you go out to these things every year. You know what the participation looks like. You know which players are out there. And you got Derwin James who doesn't play golf, and he's out there playing and competing. Joe Alt had to get clubs from the Rolling Hills Country Club, clubhouse. And I was like, "Derek, what's the longest set of clubs you got in there?" He goes, maybe 6'1", 6'2" guy. I was like, yeah. So guys out there playing with clubs that are 7 inches too short, but still getting after it. I think it goes to show you that Jim has a way to get people, that coach has a way to get people to follow him. That's a leader. That's a leader of men. And he set this thing up. And I think he probably shared with them how important it was to him. And here we are, and it was full buy-in from all these guys.
We got about a week and a half until the break before we break and we go to training camp. So the last week of OTAs, and then you get into mandatory mini camp next week. A couple of things I want to hit on. First, go ahead.
No, I said yeah.
Oh yeah, no, sorry. I think I had like a 2-second delay there for a second. A couple things I wanted to hit on, Money. The first is the news that we kind of known for a while, but Corey Linsley officially released, and we knew Corey wasn't coming back, but anytime it's official, it kind of makes you reflect on the guy that he is, the era, the Chargers era that he played. He wasn't here for a long time, man, but he made an impact in the community with CASA, with the organization that he represented, and just being a consummate pro in especially during a critical time in Justin Herbert's development as a pro. So, Corey's contributions to the Chargers, they're definitely felt, and they're going to be remembered.
Yeah, I think it's, you just go back to the last regime and how important, when you think about Tom Telesco and what he did for Justin, right? Drafting Rashawn Slater, drafting Zion Johnson, signing Corey Linsley, like what that meant for his development, especially in the case of Corey and how important he was and being able to make all the checks, and pointing out the mic and taking all of that off a young quarterback's plate where the quarterback's got full confidence in what you're doing so he can free himself up to do the rest of it. I don't think that can be minimized. Great, like you said, great member of the community, great person, just everything that you would look. They made him the highest paid center in the league, and it was a bargain. That's really the best way I can put it. He became the highest paid player at his position, and the Chargers still got a bargain out of it. It's unfortunate because he was still playing at a very high level, but certainly, family, wife, children, his health, just not worth that risk of moving forward when you're dealing with a heart situation. So happy that he looks to be pretty, comfortable with the decision and with retirement, and he will be sorely missed. No doubt about that. We just saw that season unravel when he went down in Kansas City, and what a huge impact that had and how things really could have got away from them.
Yeah, you think about that time when he went down. That was kind of the start of the end, right? The season kind of, the wheels came off. So we wish Corey and Anna and his beautiful young growing family all the best. Quentin Johnston and Joshua Palmer took the podium this week, and I think Quentin, hearing from him for the first time since his rookie season, was probably the lead. Joshua Palmer had some really good stuff that we can get into, but just hearing Quentin, hearing him talk about last year and some of the things that stuck with him and the confidence that he has in year two, the chemistry that he has with Justin right now compared to a year ago, some of the things that he was kind of describing some of the tough moments that he had with some of the drops and just, all concentration things just not just running before catching the ball and concentrating and bringing it in. So he's going to have a clean slate with the new wide receivers coach, Coach Harbaugh, who, joked with him that, he saw him, in the college football playoff. So Quentin with a clean slate here in LA in year two.
I think to me, the headline from this past week, Chris, was the combination of Quentin and Sanjay Lal, the wide receivers coach, who was made available. Running backs coach, wide receiver coach, and then, like you said, Palmer, Quentin were made available to everyone. And I think you combine, look, it's what most of the questions are going to be about, right? He's a first-round pick. He's someone that performed below expectations based on his draft slot last year. And there were some things that were particularly alarming, the drops being that. And I thought both of those, individuals did a great job addressing that. I thought most importantly, his position coach, and he's been around, Coach Lyle's been around a long time. So he knows, he's no dummy. But I think hearing him and how he was peppered with questions about basically Quentin and Quentin's hands, and asked specifically about what can you do to make someone's hands better. And I thought he had a very thoughtful, detailed answer of, it's not one thing. What is it? Is it concentration? Is it hands? Is it not running crisp routes? So you're not in the right place when you're supposed to be in the right place. Like, there's so much that goes into that. But then it was the second part of that question, second part of that answer that I thought, really kind of gave you a peek into who he is as a coach. And it is, we'll figure it out. And that's what we're going to drill into him. Whatever it was, we'll figure it out. And once we do, that's what we'll work on relentlessly. And I think, and I also loved that instead of taking the easy path as you know, he was led like, hey, do you see similarities in Quentin and DK? And that's an easy one. Like, yeah, we think he can every bit be that kind of, you know. He's like, no, I don't. I don't think they're similar receivers, but I do think there's things that I worked on with DK that I can work on with Quentin, you know, getting low and working on his breaks. And then Quentin came out and you heard that coaching, you know, you heard Quentin answering a lot of those same questions with clearly he's listening to what Coach Lyle had to offer up to him and was giving a lot of his answers had a considerable amount of similarity to what Coach Lyle said. And then, of course, as you alluded to, Chris, just, you know, him coming clean specifically about the Green Bay game.
Yeah, saying he thinks about it, and it's something that's going to motivate him moving forward. The thing that Quentin and Joshua both said, and it was emphatic, that this coaching staff is all about the details. Joshua Palmer said he's never been part of any program, high school, college, pro, that focuses on the details as much as Coach Harbaugh's staff. Coach Law was talking about Ladd McConkey, for instance. Like, if we need him to run a 13-yard route, I can trust him that he's not going to go 14 or 11 or 12. Like, he's going to run a precise 13-yard route. So to hear the coaching and the details, and those are the little things that, you know, could be the difference for a guy like Joshua Palmer or Quentin Johnston in his second year. So it's really, you know, I'm listening to this book on tape. I listened to it about 6 years ago, but with Coach Harbaugh coming in, it was Bill Walsh's Score Takes Care of Itself. And basically it's just kind of his manual, how he approaches life through football, how he built the 49ers. And you get the...
Bill Walsh.
What's that? Yeah.
Bill Walsh, yeah.
Yeah, Bill Walsh. Yep. The Score Takes Care of Itself. And he had a couple chapters in there talking about the details, but also the 80-20 rule with your team, and like the bottom 20% of your roster. And I'm not saying Quentin and Joshua are necessarily the bottom 20% of the roster by any stretch, because they're going to be counted on to be big contributors wide receiver wise, but just instilling the faith in guys who may not win you a game every single week, but just to be on call, be ready, you know, because that's the difference in winning and losing in the NFL is having, you know, the 20% of your roster, the bottom half of your roster, ready to go at a moment's notice. He's like, I don't need to tell Montana that, because, you know, similar to Justin Herbert, he's going to probably have to win us a game maybe every week, but there's going to be someone who's going to have to make a key catch or a special teams contribution that can really flip a season. You know, we talk about injuries that affect the year, but just one play here or there. And I think with guys like Quentin and Joshua, again, they're not bottom 20%, but a play here or there, being precise, always being on call, always running your route and not giving up on a play. Like, if you consistently do that, good things are going to come.
Then, you know, just starting, you know, where you started, I think you saw the excitement about McConkey. They're not gonna puff their chest out, and they're not gonna sell it too hard. But that's the ultimate compliment you can give a receiver, right? If I tell him I want this route run at 13 yards, Ladd McConkey's gonna run it at 13 yards. Like, that's what it's all about. It's all about, you need to be here at this time because he's going to release it just before you get there. So if you're there and we've got someone like Justin Herbert, this play will be successful. If you're not there, it can go horribly wrong. That's why there were no more questions about Ladd McConkey. Once you say that, you've said everything, you know? So I think that just goes to show you, and we saw it in that same OTA in the third down drill. McConkey had 2 huge catches on third downs. And it's like, yeah, this guy's going to catch some balls this year. This guy is going to earn his quarterback's trust. If the early, you know, now look, when it gets physical, he came to us. Petros and I were doing interviews, and he came with Joe Alt. So it's very hard to get perspective when those two are standing next to each other, when anybody is standing next to Joe Alt. But, you know, as he was sitting next to me, I think that's obviously going to be the big question. Can he stay healthy? And how is he going to be able, what's he going to do when it comes to competing with physical corners? They're going to try to rough him up. Some of these corners that are 6'2", 6'1", 6'2", 215, 210 pounds. How's he going to contend with that? And so we'll have to see that. Now, he did it in the SEC. A lot of corners come out of the SEC that are big-ass corners that he was able to be Georgia's most trusted wide receiver. So he did it there. But if that's the only thing I have a question about and he passes that test, this guy's going to be really good, like really, really good. As for Joshua, I think it was exactly, or Josh, and I keep thinking Joshua Kelly. As for Josh, I think Coach Lal said it. Just got to stay healthy, man. Guy's got to stay on the field. If he does, he has got all the tools. He has got all the ability. He's got speed. He runs great routes. He's got great hands. Like, Josh Palmer's a complete receiver. He is a good receiver, man. He just has not been able to stay on the field, and that's what it's going to come down to. Shark had a drop the other day. But like I said, you go back, and I was talking to Popper about this. I was like, dude, go watch this Carolina tape. Like, just watch every route. Don't just watch the completions. Don't watch the touchdowns. Don't watch the explosive. Watch every single route. This dude was balling last year, man. He was open a lot. His breaks look good. He's getting in and out. They're crisp. He's beating dudes all over the place. So, like, if they can get that right, and that's their 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you figure out how it slots in behind them, with Fehoko and Rice and Johnson and Davis and all those guys, it could end up being a really, it's a room with a ton of question marks, but just listening to the coaches and listening to Josh Palmer, and it could be a really good room that's going to surprise a lot of people.
It's mostly for us and fans where we say, hey, this is the wide receiver 1, this is the wide receiver 2. And sometimes you just know it. Like in Minnesota, Justin Jefferson's wide receiver 1. He's the best receiver on the team. Keenan for large stretches of, maybe the entire time he's been wide receiver 1 here for Phillip Rivers and Justin Herbert. With this group, like Quentin, for instance, I could see Quentin bouncing back, being a 1 or 2, or, maybe being a 4. And I think for him specifically, that's one of the burning questions going into training camp is what is Quentin Johnston going to be in year 2? This is a first-round pick. They did not select a wide receiver in the first round this year. I think largely because they have a guy like Quentin who they spent a first-round pick on the year before. And, hopefully he can live up to that billing. But, if you had to kind of call it right now, going into training camp in El Segundo late July, like what's your pecking order of wide receivers? Knowing what you've seen out of Ladd early, knowing that DJ Chark could be he's a nice surprise potentially. Coach Lowell talked about him being a not only a run after catch guy, but a deep threat guy. And we know that Justin has had connections with those types of players before. So, just from your perspective, like, how do you see the pecking order right now?
Yeah, I think it's like I said before, when we got into this, I think it's just top 3, because there is going to be a 4th man that's an odd man out, right? If you're playing 3 receiver sets, of which I don't think they're going to be playing a lot. That's what's funny, they're going to be in 12 and 22. So, but is it, Palmer, Chark, McConkey? Is it Palmer, Chark, Quentin? Is Chark the X? Quentin's the Z? Palmer's the slot? Is Quentin the giant slot like Keenan was? Is McConkey the slot? And Josh is the 1 and Quentin, or, Josh is the X and Quentin's the Z? Like, I don't know. I think I do think it's going to be a pretty intense battle in camp to figure out how this thing shakes out. Look, if I were, it's hard for me to tell because McConkey's never done it, but he's essentially a first-round pick. McConkey, you had 5 quarterbacks go in the first round. The Chargers traded up to get him at what? I think he was the 34th pick.
34.
So, yeah, so he essentially take out the 4, and now he's the 5 quarterbacks, and now he's 29. So it's like he's a first-round talent. And, I think because of the injuries to Chark, because of the disappointing season to Quentin, I think that's where you maybe have a little bit of a reservation about them, and why, in the case of Chark, why is a guy who's 6'3" and runs a 4.38 40 on his fourth team? What's going on there? That's, wide receivers are too precious of a commodity to move on from, if you feel like you've got one that's super talented. So I think that's the thing. Like, everyone's got a flag except for McConkey. And but McConkey couldn't stay healthy at Georgia. That's why he slipped. If that dude is playing 12 games a season for the last 2 years and he's performing at the level he was when he played,
he that guy's
going, that guy's going top 20. Yeah. Like, that's how good of a route runner. That's how fast. That's how good after the catch he is. So, like, I'll just put it this way. He's the one I'm most excited about. He and Josh Palmer are the two that I'm the most excited about. I just have a lot of reservations about someone with the kind of physical ability that Chark has, that somehow found himself on this type of deal and on his fourth team. But we've seen it before. We've seen guys roll into town and put up huge numbers somewhere when they didn't have it working, anywhere else. So it's happened before. Maybe it'll happen again, and Chark will be that guy.
We talked about this a little bit last week with Jeff, the tight ends room too. I mean, we've seen Justin with Hunter Henry his rookie year, Jared Cook, Gerald Everett, but this combination of Hurst and Dissly, they're going to factor in to the target share that among all the pass catchers. So, I ask you about the wide receivers, 1, 2, 3, 4. We don't know, but just keep in mind, similar to Baltimore with a guy like Mark Andrews, like Hayden Hurst could fill that type of role for Justin Herbert. I mean, you were there last week. You saw him on the field, kind of put on a show. We saw some flashes from Dissly in Seattle too, and I know Coach Law was in Seattle with the wide receivers, but Dissly was there. So that's another group that's brand new on this offense that Justin's probably going to look to more often than not.
Yeah, and I want to make sure Zach Hines, we talked about him before, had a huge catch the other day in OTAs on a third down. So Stone Smart had a big catch. We know I think about that laser that Herbert threw to Parham in Minnesota, that he snatched. Like, it's going to be a competitive tight end room. I mean, we know that it's going to be Dissly and Hurst, and we'll see where it goes from there. Is it Parham? Is it Stone Smart, who's so new to this still, so very new? He's only 25 years old, and he was a quarterback in college. So it's like you think about what Logan Thomas became, right? It took him a minute, but once he settled into the position after being a college quarterback, he's a pretty darn good tight end. So I think it's an interesting room on that front. And I know Tom's not here anymore, but Telesco would always have that one undrafted free agent that, and it even predated Tom. It was before him as well, where one of these guys would always make the 53. And this guy, Zach Hines, man, he's a legit, I'm looking at his measurables, 6'7", 260. He's athletic. There's something there. There's something there. But I think Hurst has shown us enough, and he's shown enough in his past. There's enough there. There's 650-yard seasons with 7 touchdowns that are already on his resume that suggest, this guy could end up being a top 10 tight end in the league.
I get just the vibe from this coaching staff, Bunny, that they are going to be able to maximize the back half of this roster. And, when the Chargers faltered, it was because of injuries, and they didn't have the requisite depth behind those guys. So there's probably several players that we have not really talked about or dug into, like the Nick Niemans of the world, guys who play a role on special teams, but also, could blossom into something under Coach Harbaugh. And I think that may be the biggest difference this year, is him being able to coach the entire roster and getting the most out of the guys on the back end. And that's the difference between winning and losing games. Maybe winning a division is getting everybody to buy in and making sure everybody feels like they're a part of the team and they can contribute. and really kind of live up to their potential. It just seems like there's a confidence that they can instill in these guys. And it's just hearing Greg Roman on his mic'd up, or Jesse Minter, or Coach Harbaugh speak, all these coaches that we've had the pleasure of listening to at the podium, they're teachers first and foremost, you could tell.
Yeah. It's something that you brought up right at the start, Chris, that Josh Palmer said, and it's something that we've heard from the offensive linemen when it comes to technique. Josh Palmer, that, they use the word technique. Palmer used the word details. And these are coaches who, and I can tell you right now, it's going to wear on them in training camp. This part's all fun. This is fun. We're having fun out here. It's voluntary. They can't say anything about the guys that aren't there. They're eternally grateful for the ones that are there. They wish they had every single player on the roster there. But when it gets to training camp and details and technique become, this dude is driving me crazy. Like, that's what it's going to be, because that's what it's all about. It is all about minding the details and not being one step off, and like we had, I'm trying to think of what part of the transcript it was that I was reading from the OTAs, but talking about how into I think it might have been Josh who said it, how into the details Harbaugh is, that like he will stop. Was it Josh who said it? He's like, he'll stop a meeting. Or I don't know if that was the conversation I was having with Trustman at the golf tournament, whatever.
Josh had a complete like paragraph of like the details. Right. Quentin said something about the details too with Coach and how detail oriented they are.
But it was someone who said it, and I don't know who, anyway. It was either a player or it might have been Trustman when he was talking to us. That it's unlike any other experience they've ever had, where normally, you're doing install, or you're teaching someone, and you don't quite get it right, but say, you know what, we got to move, man. We gotta get this. We only have a couple hours. We got to get on to the next thing. And they're like, that's not Harbaugh. If it's just the slightest bit wrong, everything comes to a stop. And he's like, no, that's not it. And he gets up and he demonstrates the footwork exactly how it's to be done. Or he will talk about, that's not where you're turning. That's where you're planting your foot, and that's where you're making the cut. It is all precision. It's a precision game. The famous Al Pacino, we fight for that inch. It is, and it's not just inches of forward progress or preventing forward progress. It's inches in a route. It's inches in how deep are you dropping your hips when you're going into your break. It's inches that go into technique in your bend and how your club and your rip, and like, it's all of that. That is what this coaching staff is all about. And I wish I could give credit to whoever it was that enlightened us and told us that, but that's how you win. You have people so focused and so dialed into how this is supposed to be that they don't make mistakes. And if they do, instead of being this big, they're this big. Mm-hmm. And that's what this is all about.
Yeah, and it doesn't happen more than once. If a mistake is made, it gets corrected and it's done. Yeah. The other, I just love hearing different nuggets, especially when we have just new people to learn about. And Joshua Palmer had in his press conference, someone asked him about Joey Bosa giving a speech after practice. And I guess Coach Harbaugh has something called wise words, where he just will randomly select one of the players to come up and just give wise words. And I guess Joey was selected by Coach Harbaugh the other day. And Joshua said, you never know if you're going to be called or not. So he goes, I'm always trying to stay ready just in case. But I think that's cool. Joey has seen a lot with this organization since he was drafted in 2016. Yeah. And he wants to win more than anybody. And I know that injuries have really put a damper on the last couple of seasons for him. But when he's going, man, there's nobody else you'd want on the other side. You could tell how much Khalil and Joey just have a lot of admiration and respect for each other. Thule, you could tell how much Joey means to him. So I thought that was cool. Like it's another element to bonding, becoming a team, and actually having the players feel as much a part of the program as the coaches and the staff, you know?
Yeah, I think, part of me wonders, like, what's the motivation, right? Is it because, and I think there is something sincere about it. Like, hey, these guys all have something to share. They've all played a lot of football. They're now, part of the 1% of the 1% of the 1% who get to play it at the highest level in the NFL. Let's hear what they have to say. Let's share something. But I also think I don't know if ulterior motive is the right way to put it. I would say that, but without a negative connotation. I think the idea behind it is, hey, this is tough. Playing football in the NFL is not easy, and it's an opportunity for introspection, and being able to look inside yourself and thinking, what do I want to share with the team? What is it that I've seen in all my years, or what is it that this game means to me that I want to share with these other 89 guys to hopefully help motivate them when things get really tough. And then I think the other part of it too is, like Josh said, hey, know that this is going to happen. Which of these guys is going to be prepared? Who's going to who is going to see that this is important to me, Jim Harbaugh, head coach, and make sure that they're ready, and make sure that they've got something of value, in their 60 seconds to 3 minutes that I'm giving them a platform. So I don't think any of it is just there, with this particular coaching staff, with this head coach and Jim Harbaugh. I absolutely think there's something to it, that that there is more than just, hey, this will be cool, say something to the team,
Oh, there's a method to all this stuff, because this is a team, and we're in an NFL now too, Money, where this is a year-round business. You guys are together all of the time. This is not just we show up to training camp, we play a season, and we break. Like, we have this off-season program, we do community events together. We're only away for like 5 weeks, and then we're back at it again. So yeah, you have to establish that culture, that team, that bonding, and you have to, it's got to be one of the hardest jobs in sports, is especially being a head football coach in the NFL. Yeah. These are grown men. These are not college kids. These are not high school kids. You have to keep them engaged and keep them motivated, where there are so many other motivating factors. There's money, there's things off the field. You have to keep these guys in their heads in it, all in the name of winning a Super Bowl, right? And that message can never waver. Like, everything you do on the football field has to be towards that one common goal for the team. So it's not easy, but I do think you're right. There's things like this that I think it's part of the mission. It's part of the journey, Who's to say Coach Harbaugh doesn't harken back to what Joey said in May or June, in November, when, you're competing for a division title. Like, I think you're right. All these things have a purpose.
And I think the coach interviews have a purpose too. I think by making all of those guys available, which is unlike most teams, that this last time it was Sanjay Yao, wide receiver, Keel McDonald, running backs. Like, hey, it's an opportunity for you to get out there. I want you to get promoted. I want you to excel. I want you to go from a wide receiver coach to an offensive coordinator. That's him taking care of his guys. And like we said, letting them do interviews and letting them show off their personalities, but also, show what they're doing and what this is all like. When Sanjay, when Coach Law was talking about, working with Coach Day, like, that was enlightening, right? Like, and we know how much Herbert loved Coach Day, and inexplicably he was let go. and now he's back coach was talking about how, oh yeah, we're going back and forth all the time. How does Justin want it? So I know how to teach it. Hey, this is how I think he's going to run it best. So let's talk to Justin about where he should expect it. Like, there is just such good synergy. And it was something that, I'll tell you, man, hopefully we can do it. Tressman is fascinating. He is such a fascinating guy. He's a
I'd love to
lifer.
get him on.
He's, won 3 Grey Cups in the CFL. He was Bernie Kosar's quarterback coach at Miami when they made that run. He's a head coach of the Bears for a couple years. Like, he's been around the game and he's an offensive innovator and someone who had always been trying different things and seeing, what he can do to build on offense that's already existed. But just kind of listening to him and how much he loves being around Harbaugh and how different of an individual he is. I think it's, this is the time for us to get this, because I can tell you right now, ain't going to happen in training camp. Once the first day of training camp comes along, this is all going to get shut down. It is going to be laser focused, and it is not going to be fun and funny and let's give you this guy and that guy. Don't get me wrong, it still will be. But like right now, we're in that courting phase where we're dating, and they're trying to impress us, and they're trying to, so I'd be very surprised if it stayed the same. I do think this is, hey, it's voluntary. Appreciate you. Let's get all the stuff in that we need to get in. It's still competition. It's still very serious, but there's that element of fun to it. And I think once it comes down to wins, losses, training camp, getting you ready for week 1 against the Raiders at SoFi Stadium, it's going to be a much, much different tone and attitude and the way this thing's going to look.
I think it's great. I think it's perfect. Like,
yeah,
fans should want to see that in training camp. You should want to see, like, this is great for all of us right now, because we're learning about this brand new team, all these different coaches and players that we don't know much about, frankly. Once July hits and August hits, and we're day 5, 6 in pads, it's different.
Yeah,
it's different. We're not going to get this type of access, and it should be that way, frankly. Like, this is what it is. We're trying to win a Super Bowl, right? It's not fun and games in July and August. So I'm all for it. One just note to button up the coaching staff is the experience on the staff is something. Like, Coach Staley's staff, a lot of young and upcoming coaches, but there wasn't a lot of guys who had a ton of coordinator or head coaching experience on the staff. You mentioned guys like Tressman, Greg Roman, who's been with Harbaugh, since the Stanford days, right?
Right.
Jesse Minter, I know he's young, but he has NFL experience. He was, the coordinator of Michigan defense that was among the best in all the nation. And all these longtime position coaches that come from a variety of different backgrounds. I just go back to the word teacher first and foremost. It's definitely significant when you have a staff that has the experience and, frankly, is as big as the one that Coach Harbaugh has.
Yeah, it's an interesting staff. It is. Like you said, there's opportunity that's been granted to guys, who are kind of new to the coaching ranks, like Navarro Bowman and Jonathan Goodwin and Nick Hardwick. And I think they're important, right? That's an important connection to the players because they aren't that far removed. They all played at a very high level when they did play. And then, like you said, you've got, your old salty dogs and Greg Roman and Mark Tressman and Andy Bischoff. And, as I'm looking at them all right now I went the wrong way. And I mean, the fact that Jesse's dad's on, that Rick Minter's on there, you've got everything. And there's just such good energy, like Coach Clinkscale was walking off the field the other day, and the defensive backs coach, and he just kind of came over to where all the media was, and he's just pounding fists. How we doing, guys? What'd you think? What'd you see out there? Feels good, right? Just energy, energy is infectious. And when you have a group that as a whole, looks like they're really excited to come to work every day. I think it rubs off on the players. I think the players are appreciative of that. I think we as the media are appreciative of that, to recognize, how fortunate we are to work in the field we get to work in. You don't take it lightly. It's not a game. It's a job. People's livelihoods are at stake for sure. But at the same time, to also recognize, what do I have to be upset about? This is great. Isn't this great? It's the number one Harbaughism, right? Who's got it better than us? Nobody. This is great. Like that's enthusiasm unknown to mankind. Let's go. Let's attack it. What a great opportunity that's presented itself in front of you. So, like I just think it's funny. I say that and I think about the whole, like one of my favorite clips of Mike Tomlin where he's walking down the tunnel and the guy like tries to say something to him. And he's like, yeah, let's get him, coach. And he looks at him and he just cusses him out. He's like, I got a game today, man. It's just, it's so different right now than that. Like these guys are just like, hey, man, isn't this great? And we're all like, yeah, this is great. This is great. It's, and again, just kind of as we probably are coming to a close here, like I think the one thing that you always take away when you're around him, and as some Petro said, because we were all out there doing the interviews together, it's so obvious. It's just so obvious that of what he is and what he represents and why people follow him and why, you can make a case he's more that for a certain segment, he is more popular than Justin Herbert, who's one of the most popular individuals in the National Football League. And Harbaugh's got a bigger persona and a bigger presence, and people want to be around him. And there is something about that. There's just something about it that he possesses, and it's genuine. And like I said, next week's going to be fun because we're going to get him again at the podium. Probably going to get Joe one more time at the podium. We're going to get Herbert. We're going to get Bosa. You're going to get Derwin. You're going to get all these guys at the podium this next week for this final run, this veteran mini camp. So it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, just to button it up, Jason Garrett was at OTA practice, or one of the practices last week, and he was doing his recap with Devin McCourty on their NBC podcast. And he said that the thing that stands out to me going to Chargers is presence. Jim Harbaugh's presence and the fact that they are actually doing football right now.
Yeah.
They are doing football, and it's a near perfect attendance. So when you hear an outside former head coach talking about
it for 15 years.
Yeah. Talking about the presence of the head coach, the fact that they are not just doing drills, they are doing football right now, and everybody's there. It was kind of cool to hear a former NFL head coach talk about the way he saw that OTA practice. So I thought that was noteworthy. But yeah, you're right. Next week, man, it's gonna be fun. And then we take a little break, and we'll be right back at it in July. And like you said, it may look a little bit different.
Yeah, next week's mandatory, so we'll get Gus Edwards out there, maybe get to the bottom of what's going on there.
Yeah,
because that's an interesting one. Is it excused? Is it just was whatever for voluntary, or is he not happy that they signed J.K. Dobbins and drafted Kamani Vidal? What's going on there? We know J.K. was at the first one, and then we heard Keel McDonald say, I had to tell him hey, you got to slow down. You're going a little hard, man. We're easing you back into this thing. Let's not freak out. So I think we kind of have an idea of what's going on there, but yeah, it's going to be fun to finally hear from Justin and all those guys next week, because I'm sure we will.
Is there a live stream to the commencement? Or is there going to be a recording? Can we get?
I think it is going. I think it'll be. Yeah, I think it'll be live on YouTube. But it's
how we've been splicing in press conference quotes. Next week, you know what, man? In terms of motivation, for the future. Here's a clip from Matt Money Smith from Saturday's Met.
There you go. Exactly. I've already got an issue, so I've got to figure out how to resolve it. They let me know that the graduating class is sitting behind me. And I was like, well, that's not okay. I want to talk to them. I don't want to talk to the parents and faculty and all that. And, I'm here to talk to those kids. And like, that's who I want to look at. That's who I'm trying to,
a lot of this.
Well, that's why I'm saying, I'm thinking I may just say whatever, dude, and pick up the lectern and just turn it around. And because there's just no way I can do it without looking at them. It's an address for them. It's not for anybody else. So I've already kind of
take the mic like a TED Talk and just like circle.
That's the only thing I think of is like just take the mic, turn around, and But I think hopefully the lectern will be. I mean, it's like I said, the school is 151 years old. So for all I know, it may be a lectern that's been there for 100 years. And knowing me, I'll go to pick it up and turn it. It'll fall over and shatter, and it'll be a complete disaster.
Brian, let's get this thing on Riverside. Let's get Mighty some appropriate equipment for this commencement, just in case. We need to have a backup plan for him.
Exactly. Hopefully, it's not a disaster. We'll see.
It's gonna be great, dude. I'm pumped for you. Have a blast this weekend, and we'll see you at minicamp next week, huh?
Exactly right. Be out there.
All right, brother. For Money, I'm Chris. This has been Chargers Weekly. We'll see you next week.